Hello, thank you for joining with me. We are in chapter 29, the worship of idols. This is section 10, the dream of judgment. If you'd like to join me in a short prayer. Dear Father, please enable me to set aside everything I think I know about you, about my brother, about myself, about forgiveness, this world, and of course this reading today. God, please allow me an open mind and a new experience with all things. And so it is. I love you. Amen. The dream of judgment. This is day 341 with the Course Companions group. The slave of idols is a willing slave, for willing he must be to let himself bow down in worship to what has no life and seek for power in the powerless. What happened to the Holy Son of God that this could be his wish, to let himself fall lower than the stones upon the ground, and look to idols that they raise him up? Hear then your story in the dream you made, and ask yourself if it be not the truth that you believe that it is not a dream. A dream of judgment came into the mind that God created perfect as himself. And in that dream was heaven changed to hell, and God made enemy unto his Son. So how can his Son awaken from the dream? It is a dream of judgment, so he must judge not, and he will waken. 26, Matthew 7:1, Judge not, that ye not be judged. For the dream will seem to last while he is part of it. Judge not, for he who judges will have need of idols which will hold the judgment off from resting on himself. Nor can he know the self he has condemned. Judge not, because you make yourself a part of evil dreams where idols are your true identity and your salvation from the judgment laid in terror and in guilt upon yourself. All figures in the dreams are idols, made to save you from the dream, yet they are part of what they have been made to save you from. Thus does an idol keep the dream alive and terrible. For who would wish for one unless he were in terror and despair? And this the idol represents, and so its worship is the worship of despair and terror and the dream from which they come. Judgment is an injustice to God's Son, and it is justice that who judges him will not escape that penalty he laid upon himself within the dream he made. God knows of justice, not of penalty. But in the dream of judgment you attack and are condemned and wish to be the slave of idols, who are interposed between your judgment and the penalty it brings. Footnote 27. The term idols here includes both valued objects and valued bodies. For a clear reference to viewing people as idols, see 7:7. And the forms which enter in the dreams and were perceived as idols are now perceived as brothers. To understand the notion of idols being interposed between your judgment and the penalty it brings, we should think in terms of three zones. The outer zone is composed of all the dangers and attack in the dream. These are really just messengers of the penalty we have laid upon ourselves for judging. The inner zone is ourself, the one who does the judging. To defend ourselves, the inner zone from the self-imposed penalty for judging, carried out by the outer zone, we surround ourselves with the middle zone of idols, which are valued objects and valued people. Their job is to protect us from the outer zone. They carry out our judgment against it, acting as hired security men who attack and neutralize its assaults. Assaults. And back to the text. There can be no salvation in the dream as you are dreaming it, for idols must be part of it. To save you from what you believe you have accomplished and have done to make you sinful, and to put out the light within you. I'm going to repeat that sentence, it's rather long. For idols must be a part of it to save you from what you believe you have accomplished and have done to make you sinful and put out the light within you. Oftentimes, I have to re-listen to this myself to grasp it. Little child, the light is there. You do but dream, and idols are the toys you dream you play with. Who has need of toys but children? They pretend they rule the world and give their toys the power to move about and talk and think and feel and speak for them. Yet everything their toys appear to do is in the minds of those who play with them. But they are eager to forget that they made up the dream in which their toys are real, nor recognize their wishes as their own. Footnote 28. Pronoun clarification, nor recognize the toys' wishes as the children's own. And back to the text. Nightmares are childish dreams. The toys have turned against the child who thought he made them real. Footnote 29. To understand why the toys turn against us, we need to realize that we have given them our judgments against the unpleasant things in the dream, so that the toys act out those judgments for us. He fears his thoughts and gives them to his toys instead. Yet, as this line says, the thoughts of judgment we give our toys are thoughts that we fear, for they bring guilt. They are thus thoughts that betray us, thoughts that attack us, with the guilt and pain of self-betrayal. Since our toys are there to act out thoughts that attack and betray us, the toys themselves are in a sense programmed to attack and betray us. Back to the text. Yet can a dream attack, or can a toy grow large and dangerous and fierce and wild? This does the child believe because he fears his thoughts and gives them to his toys instead. And their reality becomes his own because they seem to save him from his thoughts. Yet do they keep his thoughts alive and real, but seen outside himself where they can turn against him for his treachery to them. He thinks he needs them that he may escape his thoughts because he thinks the thoughts are real. And so he makes of anything a toy to make his world remain outside himself and play that he is but part of it. There is a time when childhood should be past and gone forever. Seek not to retain the toys of children. Put them all away, for you have need of them no more. The dream of judgment is a children's game in which the child becomes the father, powerful but with the little wisdom of the child. What hurts him is destroyed, what helps him blessed, except he judges this as does a child, who does not know what hurts and what will heal. And bad things seem to happen, and he is afraid of all the chaos in the world he thinks is governed by the laws he made. Yet is the real world unaffected by the world he thinks is real, nor have its laws been changed because he did not understand. The real world is still but a dream, except the figures have been changed. They are not seen as idols which betray. It is a dream in which no one is used to substitute for something else, or interposed between the thoughts the mind conceives and what it sees. No one is used for something he is not, for childish things have all been put away. Footnote 30. 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spake as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. In the above reference, the childish things we put away are the toys that adults play with, the idols of the world. Back to this text. And what was once a dream of judgment now has changed into a dream where all is joy, because that is the purpose that it has. Only forgiving dreams can enter here, for time is almost over, and the forms which enter in the dreams are now perceived as brothers, not in judgment but in love. Forgiving dreams have little need to last. They are not made to separate the mind from what it thinks. They do not seek to prove the dream is being dreamed by someone else. And in these dreams a melody is heard which everyone remembers, though he has not heard it since before all time began. Forgiveness once complete brings timelessness so close the song of heaven can be heard, not with the ears but with the holiness that never left the altar, which abides forever deep within the Son of God. And when he hears this song again, he knows he never heard it not. And where is time when dreams of judgment have been put away? Whenever you feel fear in any form, you are fearful if you do not feel a deep content, a certainty of help, a calm assurance heaven goes with you. Be sure you made an idol and believe it will betray you. For beneath your hope that it will save you lies the guilt and pain of self-betrayal and uncertainty, so deep and bitter that the dream cannot conceal completely all your sense of doom. Your self-betrayal must result in fear, and fear is judgment leading surely to the frantic search for idols and for death. Forgiving dreams remind you that you live in safety and have not attacked yourself. So do your childish terrors melt away, and dreams become a sign that you have made a new beginning, not another try to worship idols and keep attack. Forgiving dreams are kind to everyone who figures in the dream, and so they bring the dreamer full release from the dreams of fear. He does not fear his judgment, for he has judged no one, nor has sought to be released through judgment from what judgment must impose. And all the while, he is remembering what he forgot when judgment seemed to be the way to save him from its penalty. Footnote 31. This means when judgment carried out by his idols seemed to be the way to save him from its penalty carried out by the dangers in the dream. And this concludes chapter 29, and we will go ahead and read Robert Perry's wonderful commentary. Thank you, Robert Perry and Emily Bennington, for this group. This is an extremely powerful and important section, yet it's very difficult to see the whole picture that it is painting. It's vital that we do see it, though, because it is a picture of our lives as we have never seen them, a picture that we can get nowhere else but from this section. I am going to allow myself a longer commentary today to get this picture across. God created our minds as perfect as Himself and established them in heaven. How then did we get to where we are now? What happened? A dream of judgment came into our holy minds. We let a vicious beast into the temple. As a result, we believe that all our judging has made us sinful. Out of this belief, we dream up a world that constantly punishes us for our sins, as was explained especially in chapters 27 and 28. This is why the weather tries to freeze us or boil us. This is why faceless institutions attempt to prey on us. This is why criminals want to break into our homes and steal our cars. This is why enemies in our personal or professional lives plot our ruin. This is why germs invade our bodies. This is the reason for the challenges we face every day. How do you cope with a world perceived as dangerous, with forces massed against your confidence and peace of mind? There seems to be only one thing to do: hole up in your bunker with all your supplies and weapons, and with your security team stationed at the perimeter. Isn't that exactly what we have done? We are holed up in our homes with our creature comforts and all the tools we have for controlling our world, surrounded by our support network. We have basically built up a huge buffer zone of idols that is there to protect us from the full force of a cruel world. Yet that cruel world is simply the penalty we have laid upon ourselves for all the judging we have done. So we sentenced ourselves, but afterwards we skipped bail and hired a team of lawyers and thugs to protect us from that sentence being carried out. I just watched a documentary on Scientology where a former member described his escape. I had to walk away from my wife, who I loved very much, all of the friends I had in the world. A person has to be so desperate to just turn their back on everything and walk out into a world that is just totally foreign and where they don't know anybody. They don't know the rules. They don't know how to get a job. They don't know how to get a bank account. It's a foreign world that they have to go out and somehow cope with alone. In essence, it's a kind of suicide. This man, in other words, had to shed his entire buffer zone of idols, which was completely contained within Scientology. Do you see what a frightening prospect that is? Can you imagine what it would be like to shed your entire buffer zone of idols? Having friends to protect us from enemies, walls to protect us from the weather, and a job to protect us from homelessness seems like the only way to go. But there is a serious downside. Actually, there are several. First, we become the slave of our idols. Think about your buffer zone of idols: the home, the money, the possessions, the clothes, the phone, the support network. Aren't you enslaved to that entire zone? Second, we become ever more reinforced in our fear of the cruel world. The very presence of idols is a physical statement that at any moment we could be toast. When you live inside the protection of a dike, is not the dike itself a constant reminder that tomorrow you could be underwater? For who would wish for an idol unless he were in terror and despair? And this the idol represents, and so its worship is the worship of despair and terror. Third, we are terrified that our idols will turn on us, and they frequently do. To understand why, we need to understand the psychology behind our use of them. As the cruel world glares at us and threatens to hurt us, we judge it. Of course we do, and our judgment is a hand held up that says, "You must stop." Then we take this judgment and hand it to our idols. Our judgment now becomes their job description. It becomes the dream role that we assign them. See chapter 29, section 5. This carries a double benefit for us. First, of course, they go out and try to stop the cruel world from hurting us. When someone badmouths us, they leap to our defense, all of them parroting the same talking points about how great we are. Second, and crucially, our judgments now seem to be theirs, not ours. As this section says, we fear our thoughts of judgment, and so we give them to the toys, the idols, instead. We now can stand back and smile innocently while our idols go on the attack. We can claim lack of malice even while our lawyers destroy our ex's life. Think about it. How often does the Godfather himself get prosecuted? Once the hitmen commit the murders, it's very difficult to trace the order back to him, an order that was probably given in code. He appears to be innocent. Is it really that different in our personal lives? Yet, here is the twist. The thoughts we have handed to our idols as their job description are thoughts of judgment. And wasn't judgment what got us in this whole mess in the first place? Judgment, then, is self-destructive. It is a betrayal of ourselves. This means that we have just handed thoughts of self-betrayal to our idols as their marching orders. What happens when they carry out thoughts that betray us? Haven't we just unwittingly ordered them to turn on us? That is why we live in fear of our idols betraying us. And that's why they do betray us. All the time. This hardly requires pointing out. Just think how often people from our inner circle, our buffer zone of protection, leave the compound and join the outer zone of enemies. It's one of the truly sad things about life that friends, lovers, spouses, and family members can so easily turn into enemies. They were supposed to protect us from the cruel world, and yet now they have just become another soldier in its army. How did that happen? Our explanation is that to our surprise they turned out to be bad people. Jesus' explanation is that we hired them to first protect us and ultimately betray us. This whole section is such a different story of our lives. Our story is about a cruel world and bad friends. It's about objective evil pressing on us from without. But what if Jesus is right and this is really all a dream, and specifically a dream of judgment? In that light, everything he is saying makes perfect sense. If we did fall asleep and dream a dream of judgment, this is how it would be structured. How then do we get out of this nightmare? The answer is surprisingly simple. It is a dream of judgment, and so we must judge not. Instead, we must forgive. We need to forgive all of it, the bad guys in the outer zone who heartlessly run us over, and the good guys in the inner zone who screw up their jobs and then join the oppression. As part of this forgiveness, we need to release our idols from their marching orders. We need to stop treating our friends as human shields. We need to stop making them toys in our plastic army. In short, we need to stop using them. Instead, we need to grant them full status as brothers. If we can allow them to be beings in their own right, precious, sacred kin, then what was once a dream of judgment now has changed into a dream where all is joy. Can we do that today? Can we set them free from being our toys? Thank you so much for joining with me in this wonderful section. Day 341 with the Course Companions Group, Section 10, the concluding section of Chapter 29, The Worship of Idols. I love you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.